What goes into training a Paralympic athlete? Well, if only we had one on hand to talk to. We do, Nathan Clement, and we have his strength and conditioning coach here as well, Matt Fliss from the University of BC. All that and more to come. Let's get started.
Welcome to Parasport Nation with Alex Smyth and Nathan Clement.
Welcome into Parasport Nation. I'm your host, Alex Smyth, joined always by Nathan Clement. Nathan, are you excited or nervous that we pulled your strength and conditioning coach to join us on the show today?
I'm about to be exposed and the world is going to see. So shots are going to be fired and I just got to take a step back and let them come my way.
Well, what are we waiting for, Nathan? Let's waste no further time. But before we get into the interview with Matt Fliss, we have the PSN update. Take it away.
Now, the PSN update.
Southern Ontario set the stage for the ITF Feature Series as North America's tennis feature came to Markham. Santiago 2023 Para-Pan-Am athlete Thomas Venos sailed to the finals at the Premier Racket Club Wheelchair Classic, ultimately falling just short in the singles finals. In doubles, Venos and Barry Henderson also came up short in the final. Looking ahead, Montreal's premier parasport event is about to begin. Défi Sportif launches its 42nd edition on April 25th. Running for 10 days and featuring over 10 sports, the event welcomes youth from schools, provincial and national athletes, and some of the world's best to the island of Montreal. Highlighted by the 2025 International Series in blind hockey, as Canada takes on the United States on home soil. For those in Montreal, the series is free to attend at the Howie Morenz Arena. Games take place on April 25th, 26th, and 27th. For those outside Montreal, you can catch all the action on Canada's Blind Hockey YouTube page. And that's the PSN update.
And in addition to that, I'm going to be on the ground at Défi Sportif for the end of the competition. I'll be there the first weekend in May, covering interviews, getting to know some of the athletes there as they compete in this competition. It's a great one, Nathan. I'm excited, but I'm also excited to chat with Matt Fliss. So why don't we go into the interview? As I mentioned, Matt is the UBC strength and conditioning coach. He's also with Cycling Canada as a strength and conditioning specialist. He's a UBC PhD candidate, and he also happens to train Nathan Clement. Here's our interview with Matt Fliss. Matt, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Yeah, no worries, guys. Excited.
Well, I'm happy to talk to you. Being a strength and conditioning coach or expert is something that we've always wanted to have on the show. But not only that, you're also Nathan's strength and conditioning coach and the co-creator of something called Cane Golf. So I had to meet you and find out the whole story.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to say co-creator because I don't think it's okay for me to make Cane Golf part of my athletes program. But last summer, I think we were in the gym when two other coaches were actually playing like mini golf putting practice. Like we have it's on, I think on the screen, the big turf section. So they would create little mini golf courses around with a real golf club. And then Nate, I think, had the bright idea of turning his around and holding the cane upside down. It's got like a normal hook thing, but it kind of actually looks like a golf club, the handle. And we would flip it upside down and hold it with the butt end up. And we have these small soccer balls also that can be seen sort of in this video. And I think we just started whacking it around and eventually made try to get it in a bucket or something. And then as the weeks progressed, that was the reward for our workout. It was finish a 45-minute session or an hour session because we were in before athletes came in. And then as they were coming in and getting started, we would play a couple holes of put as much stuff on the turf as possible and go for it. Eventually I had to put rules against Nate just hammering it and just bouncing it off the wall to get close to the hole. So we had a rule of it couldn't go a foot above the ground or something because Nate's strategy was give her and skip all of the stuff that we put on the ground. So it was no longer cane golf. It was more like just driving range and hit a wall.
Just true tyranny with the rules that we had to put in there, where I couldn't bring out my inner John Daly, and so couldn't all the other players. But it was a lot of fun getting to do that, and as you said, it was just a great exercise to have after a tough training day, especially like as the training was leading up to the games at that point, it was a nice little refresh, and we got a ton of athletes to play. We even got golfers, hockey players, and just people from different sports wanting to get involved. So it was a lot of fun. But Matt, I want to go back to the start for you. What got you inspired to be a strength and conditioning coach?
Oh, classic question. I guess for me, it was my high school. So I just by like region went to a normal high school. But then the normal part of it had like a pretty athletic bringing up portion, nothing crazy where the kids get like months out of school to go ski like in Switzerland or anything, but it was still like an athletic based high school. So I didn't do any of that, but I was still involved with like, you could take strength and conditioning classes, which I think was quite unique at the high school level. So it wasn't just exercise science. It was like, we had a pretty sweet gym space, and the gym teachers were teaching you like basics of lifting. And then you go into further years and they were like, if you like sport science or exercise or anything, there's a whole degree you can do in that. So then I went into McMaster for kinesiology. First 3 weeks was like, oh, medicine would probably be pretty sick. Realized not even close to being smart enough for that. So then was pretty dead set on S&C. They had positions you could apply for out of your first year where you're a volunteer in the McMaster varsity gym. So you assist and learn the ropes and everything. And so that was like coveted in the program, was you get that or the like taping one, like sideline injury stuff. So I ended up getting offered both. And then it was, which one do I think I'd personally enjoy more, which was S&C. And then now I think all the way back, and here I am making the correct decision. And it just pursued it since coming out to UBC as well. But it all started with like good high school teachers who were very promoting of exercise and supportive, I would say.
Well, and speaking of, those humble beginnings and really kind of looking back at where things have ended up for you, let's talk about when you met Nathan that first time, because this is something I'm very curious about, how your two paths crossed initially.
Nate, do you remember where we first met?
I do, yes.
Like first?
I do, yes.
So technically, Nate and I didn't meet for the first time as trainer and client. There was a research study I was assisting on at UBC through CSIP, so Canadian Sport Institute Pacific. And they were testing, doing these body composition. And I forget what Ida was doing with you guys, but I had the job of doing body comp scans. And it was all of our endurance athletes at UBC. So our swimmers, rowers, runners, and then a handful of in the area CSI carded athletes. And so Nate was one of them, got booked in, and was a tricky scan to do, if Nate remembers that one. That was definitely a curveball, but that's sort of the fun of this whole talk. Just because for the body comp scan, best practice is laying still for about 6 minutes. So we got through it. That's the first time I met Nate. And then I don't know what Nate, I don't think we've ever actually talked about what Nate's side of things were coming into the gym. My side of things were my boss, Joe McCullum, called me, loves calling people, and said, hey, we have a contract through Cycling Canada. They want one of their athletes to come train in the varsity gym because he's the only one in Vancouver, or the only one who needed the gym space. Usually athletes go to the centers across Canada and they'll live either near Victoria. Where is it in Victoria? It's not in Victoria, is it?
It's just outside of Victoria. It's more in Saanich, right by Camosun College over there. And then...
Yeah. So Nate going there twice a week is impossible. And so I was like, for sure, I'll take this. That sounds wicked cool. Knew it was like paracycling, but that was sort of it. And then he walks in for our first session. I walk over and we're both like, wait a minute, we've met before. And then from there, it was like the normal meeting someone for the first time. What do you like to do? Sort of awkward interactions. But now we've had 3 years together, and I'd consider Nate one of my like closer and best friends, because he's you see him twice a week and we get along really, really well, which obviously helps the dynamic of coach athlete sort of things. Sometimes it can be quite like a dynamic, power dynamic with certain sports or teams. But with us, it just sort of feels like common. We both know what we need. We both know what he needs to get to win. And then we see eye to eye. There'll probably be time to explain it later as well, but it's not a 100% my decision in the gym. I genuinely think it's probably now closer to about 60-40 in terms of what we end up doing in the gym. Where usually with a trainer, with a team, it might be like 100% whatever I say goes. And then as you get individualized, you can get a lot cooler. So that's definitely been the fun part about working with Nate. But that was 3 years ago, which is wild to think.
Other than dealing with my personality, what were the original challenges that you faced as a strength and conditioning coach working with a para athlete?
Well, I guess I'm giving a similar presentation in a month for this big conference about working para athletics and like tips and tricks. I've lumped it into two main ones with like, we'll use Nate as the example. One, I'd never worked with cycling before. And I still attribute me picking up cycling to working with Nate. I was already wanting to start it, but it was just like he sped it up. So it was with any new sport, you have to think about what do we need from the gym that he doesn't already get from his like 8 to 15 hours ish on a bike a week. So that was running through the head. And then the other one, first one usually with para for at least me, was safety. And then it was kind of nice when Nate came in. How the programming worked was he was getting a program from Francois Raymond out of Quebec, and I would just do the program with Nate. And then eventually a year in, I took it over. So I would say it was a nice lead-in to have Frank giving Nate a program. It was mostly mobility work, I believe. We were kind of just like not doing too much lifting style of things, but that's also because Nate was not with Frank in person. And then over time, I started to tweak stuff, learning Nate's condition, how it would affect over the weeks. If he came in following a bad sleep or a travel day, or if he came in feeling good, what does good mean and what can we actually do and push? And then quickly realizing that I can make some decisions as well. So there was a transition period where I felt confident enough knowing Nate and his body. Nate felt confident enough to tell me how he's feeling and what his opinions are on exercises. And then it took a long time. Like, I won't lie about it, neither will Nate. Like, it wasn't just throwing in, oh yeah, all these exercises will work, this will be super easy. The basic principles were all still there. Like, cycling is your legs, so let's make his legs really strong. But as we'll see with some of the videos, we might take some unconventional means to do similar things with the different types of athletes. And so obviously it might go without saying, but I was thinking about it this morning on my long ride. Not every condition and sport and classification is going to be the same in terms of what you can do to get the program, but the program is going to be pretty similar. Like if I had a time trial athlete, we'll just call him a group time trial guy. With a time trial athlete, it's just sprinting, extended sprinting, and it sucks, and you're just in the pain cave. That program is probably going to stay quite similar, regardless of the condition, and probably the level of competition. And then it's just like plug and play with all the exercises we've tweaked over the years of what's going to be safest and most effective for the current athlete.
I also love that you mentioned the pain cave. I love that phrase. I'm sure Nathan hates it, but I love the way it's described. We do have some videos of Nathan going through some of these exercises. So why don't we take a look at them one by one, and then you can kind of like break it down for us, like what he's doing, why this exercise is really helping him, and like if there's any kind of changes or adaptations that had to be made to make it safe, accessible for Nathan. So I believe our first one is a bit of a leg pull. So let's take a look.
Oh yeah. So in this video, Nate's sitting on a box, sitting upright, and we have his feet sort of out in front of him. And the strap is connected to a cable machine. So if you would imagine bringing your knee to your chest, if you were sitting on a couch, you might feel like a pinching for some people in the front of your hip. But in Nate's case, that is very similar to the upstroke when pedaling a bike. So if you're actively trying to pull your knee to your chest and then push down with max force, probably for a good amount of people who commute, if you're feet aren't connected to the pedals with the clip-in shoes or the clipless, not even sure what the term is, probably should. You never feel that because you're usually always just pushing. But when your feet are locked into the pedals, you can get extra watts, extra power if you're efficient on the upstroke. And so the reason I have Nate doing this one's super new. That one came to me in a dream. What you have to remember with Nate's position for cycling, if you look up someone who does a time trial, they're like super hunched over their bike. It's not up riding around the seawall or on a nice ride around your city. It's hunched over so you can be super aero. And what that's going to do is also make it so that when you bring your knee to your chest, it's going to get really, really compressed. So we tried this one out, where one of Nate's goals for this year was, I think, hip mobility in general is what you said, Nate, like hips feeling fine, making them feel a bit nicer. And so we've done this one before where he'd be laying on the ground, or sometimes you have athletes just standing and they bring their knee up to parallel like a sprinter and then bring it down. But that doesn't really mimic the compressed position of being in a cycling posture. And so we gave this one a try just to see if we can get him to be stronger in that compressed position. We do stuff like this, which is, I'll call it like loaded hip mobility, and I'm sure most strength coaches would call it the same, paired alongside a lot of hip mobility drills that are tolerated and enjoyed by Nate during a warm-up. But we do the easy stuff to build up, and then we do a bunch of this loading work. So if it was to try it at home, you just lift your knee as high as you can where you're standing. But in terms of Nate's, you would try to lift your knee while you're standing and bent over as if you're going to tie your shoe. And then you'll feel how restricted you are. But for Nate, that's probably a pretty key performance indicator. If we can get him lower on his bike, more folded forward, while still being able to maintain his normal pedal stroke, I see that as a bonus. And then Nate, over time, let me know if it feels better or worse. But this is one of these sort of accessory exercises we do. Most of our stuff, or all of our exercises, are tailored towards cycling in some way. But by no means that a primary one. I think we'll show the primary ones and hype up a bit of para strength.
I think next up we have the reverse leg hypers, and especially like even going back to that previous exercise, we were using my left arm there, and something you and I have worked on is with my condition and with my disability, there are days where my left leg may not be able to even handle a cable around there, but then some other days where I'll be able to get the cable around my leg, but it might take a rep or two for my leg to actually get, using the term here, get spastic and be able to handle the cable coming in and out. So it's one of those exercises that does take a lot of hits and misses, but once you get that momentum going, it really gets going with the leg. And it's kind of similar to the reverse leg hyper, which we're going to get up next and have you break that down. But it's that's a drill, at least for me, where my left leg follows my right leg.
Yeah, I think the sort of like preemptively. So we do a couple of drills, terminology that might slip out, and then I forget that it just slipped out. Unilateral and bilateral. So in our first one, if we do the left leg only and then the right leg separately, we'll call it unilateral. So we're working them individually, which at times is going to have benefits for Nate, because cycling, technically you push one leg at a time. But in this video, so this is a reverse hyperextension. Nate's climbed onto this thing that's nearly impossible to describe. It's as if you were laying on a table with your legs dangling off the edge. And what Nate's doing is he's lifting his heels up to the sky to get to like a Superman position, and then letting them come down. And there's two parts to this that we work on. One is as he's on his way down, the nice round pad that he's laying on, or the edge of the table, gravity is going to do a little bit of work to get his low back to go into a bit of flexion. And it'll be a feeling, like a pretty good stretch feeling. But the main reason we tossed this exercise in was it trains your glutes and your hamstrings pretty well. Like Nate, by the time we get to the 12, 15, 20 reps we're doing on this, starts to feel quite a burn. And any sort of leg muscle that we can train and an exercise that works and feels comfortable, we keep in the program, and we sort of recycle them as we go through the years. So part of this exercise, however, is it's really hard to load. So we've tried, I think we tried a rubber band once. It would be like if you put a band around his heels and connected it to the ground. So as the legs come up, the resistance gets harder. But you either need high socks so that you don't shave your legs. And then we found that with a few exercises, the band feeling, like the rubber on your leg, I think is what it was, led to some spasticity occurring only on the left side. And as soon as that happens, unless Nate's okay with tolerating it for some, like duration, or if he really likes the importance of exercise, we'll keep doing it. But usually if there's something that induces a lot of spasticity, we sort of just go, is it worth it? And in this case, it's more of a mobility exercise for his lumbar spine. Because again, he spends on the low end 8 hours a week on his bike, on the high end 15, 16s. It's a lot of time to be sitting in a stationary position and having your spine not really move. So we're getting his spine to move, but we're also getting glute and hamstring work as well.
And so our next one, this one, I'm not sure if is how would you describe this exercise? Is it a deadlift variant? Like, take it away, because I had a hard time trying to figure out what you would just call this exercise.
I think this one, in terms of my earlier point before we started, and I was just like yapping about S&C stuff, the basic program staying the same across conditions and levels of time trial cycling, I would say pretty much the same. Squatting and hinging. And so hinging is what we just saw from the past two. So primarily you're moving your through your hips. You're assuming that your knees aren't going to change. So the only thing that's actually getting you to move is your hip extensors. So in this case, it's his glutes. So 100% right that this is a deadlift style exercise. It would be in the hinge family of exercises, but we can't deadlift with Nate. It's just not in the cards for the condition in terms of safety. And even if we could do a good looking deadlift body weight, I wouldn't feel comfortable, and I'm assuming Nate wouldn't feel comfortable either, loading it quite heavy. Just due to the spasticity of the left side, the bilateral deadlift, like 2 feet into the ground, probably would be a no-go. And so I was saying that back extension, it's a hinge exercise, and you just load it a bit differently. It feels a bit better on the spine, whereas the back extension that we saw, that's an exercise where we can actually load it. And we can load it up until whatever Nate can hold on to. And so I believe Nate's PR is 90 pounds by 5 or 6 is what we ended off with before his camp in Spain. And we would lock him in place. Same motion, similar to the reverse hyper, but you can see he's holding a dumbbell. And for this video, we didn't get the heavy one, but he can use his right hand to hold the load. And so as soon as we can get anything where we can have actual loading, that's definitely a staple of our program. And in this case, that exercise, he feels it equally on both sides, or at least is able to feel the left working as well as the right. And we can chalk his hand up so that he can hold quite a bit of load. And we just sort of hammer those exercises that are quite stable and safe over and over and over again, because that's what he can handle. So we don't need to change the exercises every few weeks, because we're already limited in our equipment by using one gym space. And then if these things are feeling nice, in my opinion, just get him really good at the technique and then load him up. Like, we started with the 30 on that exercise, and then over the weeks he built up to a 90. Like, no one can deny a strength increase that's 3 times the amount of weight he's moving.
And now moving on to arguably my favorite exercise, the sled drags. But I more want to get into the history of it. So we did try a couple exercises before that didn't really work out that great. And then just in a beautiful organic way, it led to the sled drag and pulling tennis balls and chains and different things across the turf at the UBC gym.
In terms of, like, if you were to think about strength training a cyclist, everybody's first thing has to be a squat movement, is my thought. Like, I could be completely wrong, and there's going to be Europeans who are going to log in and be like, you forgot about this key part of cycling. But, like, you push your leg down and you get a lot of force. The tricky thing, like Nate was saying, is when you have a condition that has the ups and downs and the potential balance issues with the bilateral squatting variations, typically you load a bar on your back and you squat a lot of weight. And we did bodyweight squats just to see what they would look like. And personally, Nate's bodyweight squats technically look fine. Like, I've used them in lectures before to show students that this is a stroke survivor, but look at his bodyweight squat, it looks pretty good. As soon as you add load to it, that's where things start to break down. So we tried, and we don't have a video of it, but I can just, for people to Google if they want, it's a belt squat, or a pit shark is the brand of thing we have. And what you do is you wear a belt that has a chain that goes through the ground, so that you're not actually loaded up top with anything. You're loaded through your hips, and then you put a bunch of weight on it, and you can hold something for stability. And I thought this was like going to be the big ticket item. That would be the greatest thing ever. Like, it's stable, it's safe, we're all good to go. We tried it once, and this is where that 60-40 split comes in. I went, how does it feel? And I don't think you liked getting out of it.
I wasn't able to
Right?
get out of it. I was stuck to the ground.
Yeah, so in order to get out of it, and depending on the belt squad version you have to get back up and then also pull this thing that's the safety lock and do all these extra pieces. And yeah, it wasn't an exercise that worked in practice. On paper, worked 100%, but obviously you don't try stuff and go, this worked on paper. So then we'll give a shout out to Ashley. Why not? Because I didn't come up with the sled drag exercise for Nate. There's another cyclist in the varsity gym, Ashley Capewell, who's a strength coach, and he chats with us all the time. And I went up to him and I went, any exercises you think Nate could do that are heavy loaded, squatty type motions? And he said, try sled drags. And they've been in our program now for about 2 years. And so we had the one video of Nate doing backwards pulling sled drags. So again, there was a belt around his hips, so the weight's not anywhere up tall, doesn't have to hold anything, and he's connected with a rope from the belt to a sled loaded with a bunch of weight, and we have a turf space that he can drag it on. And we have just been progressing that for 2 years. It's a staple exercise. We do them backwards and we also do them forwards. So the backwards video we saw, he's not getting like butt to heels, which is what you might think of when you think of squatting, like get as low as you can and then get out of there. If you think of cycling, they're not really getting into crazy compressed knee angles. Their hip definitely gets compressed, which is why we have that other knee drive drill like a sprinter. But he's mainly working in these open knee angles. And so if you were to look at him on his TT position or cycling position and next to that sled and like rotate his image on a screen, they're pretty similar. And you can increase strength quite specific to the range of motion you train in. So what's our record? Not ours. I can't move it. What am I talking about? What's the record? 10 plates?
10 plates at 45 pounds a plate. But you have pulled that in the past. But the one time with that exercise too is I've fallen one time doing it, and it just so happened to be in front of the Canucks athletic trainer.
So yeah, that one works out really well for a super safe. There's no risk of anything aside from tripping in front of the Canucks trainer. Even if like someone were to fall doing a sled drag, especially at the speeds we're going, it's just like falling on the ground anyways. And so we could put this unbelievable amount of weight through his legs, and unbelievable is in many, many times the varsity athletes are walking around and like in awe that Nate's dragging this amount of weight. It's not for speed. Like most of the athletes do sprinting sled things, but that's not the goal of what we're using sleds for. Our sleds are to give him a stimulus he can't get on his bike, which is low, slow, super maximal hard contractions. And that one's worked super well for the past few years.
Well, Matt, this has all been fantastic and breaking down all these videos. Let's get to a bit of the fun. So I want to know, truly know, how is Nathan when it comes to these training sections? You say you got the 60-40. Are there any exercises that you know he truly just despises, but you still put him through because despite what he might say, it's for his own good?
Did you put him up to this? Did Nate, you make this question?
I did not.
Yeah, Nate's good. You'd expect it with any, I'll go like two different directions. You'd expect it with any athlete at the international level that the drive's different. Like for any S&C coaches or someone who's gotten a chance to work with an athlete who gets the opportunity to compete at anything with worlds in the name, there's a reason they're competing for a world championship or a medal in Paris in Nate's case. Like there's something, I usually go with the word wrong as a joke, but like they're just different up top. And so Nate's a big proponent of, let me just do a couple more 100 pounds. Let me do like 18 more reps. Let me do 1,000 more minutes of this plank exercise. But then there are also the fun mobility exercises. But Nate's goal is to increase hip mobility. So when I program hip mobility exercises and I am granted a fun gesture via the hand from Nate, or Yeah, some require a bit more encouragement than others to get through with a bit more. It's hard. It's easy to focus on 1,000 pound sled or 500 pounds or whatever we're doing because that's all you're thinking about. But the mobility, Nathan, the 2 hours of stretching daily, definitely something he likes to complain about. But complaining's like half the fun of being an athlete.
Yeah, that's just the joy of it, and getting Matt disappointed in me when I'm complaining about doing stretches like the world's greatest or other mobility exercises. But Matt, you said it at the start, you got into cycling pretty recently, and you were in Europe over the summer, but I want to know, would you have a dream cycling location that you could go to?
Oh, I don't know. There's a prof from our like lab group who's in France right now. And he's doing some pretty wicked cool rides. I feel like I'd want to do again, like just anything coastal. I don't know if there's like Italian or Spain coast or just like rolling roads, but like it would be more fun to be on the water. Probably get hit with like a nasty crosswind coming across. But like, if you got any recommendations of where you've been taken.
Oh, I got so many spots. Alex, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, I mean, Nate is kind of the expert in that. I mean, all over the world with this cycling. Matt, before we let you go, we're going to wrap things up here on this question. While Nate has been your first para-athlete, like, is this something you want to continue to expand on and work out with and train more para-athletes and athletes with disabilities going forward?
Yeah. Short answer is yeah. I was chatting with Nate last week about it. I got alluded to somebody else was attempting to train with us. It's a bit of a unique situation at UBC just because it's a school first. So Nate's contracted in, proven himself why he's contracted in as well. But in terms of, I'll go two ways with this again. We'll go personal development and also just like fun. Personal development, it's been insane. Like it's a completely different sporting context. You have to add in this extra layer of things. But it affords you the ability to be creative and have fun with these people who are also insanely dedicated to their sport. Their competition level is crazy. And we went to Europe on our own trip, and I ended up being at Nate's finish line for the Paris silver medal he got. Wasn't paid for. We just ended up going. And over the course of that day, we saw all the different types of cycling time trialists. And I think, sorry, Nate, but the coolest one is the seated hand bikers. They look like they're riding around in carbon spaceships. But what Nate and I were talking about, or as I was mentioning to him, is there's another S&C coach out of Calgary who trains, I think, para sledge for sure. He might have a few of the other athletes who are at that sport institute. And then recently I came across a page of a trainer for Michigan who has para Michigan athletes. And I think they're actually Michigan students. So like a varsity program. And yeah, having worked with Nate now, it's quite a fun training environment, and para athletics is definitely something I have a passion for now. And I'm, like I was alluding to earlier, not like self-promoting, but I'm speaking at a conference for the Canadian Strength and Conditioning Association about working with para athletes, because you might not get afforded the opportunity. Like not everyone's going to get the chance to, but if you do, it's not scary. It's not anything crazy. Like apply your basic principles. Everything's going to be fine. But then you get challenged in a completely different way to come up with S&C programs and see different sports as well. Anyone ever seen goalball? Like, what are you talking about? I played it once before and it was wicked. But like, even when I watch them, I'm like, how would I train a goalball athlete to be better at goalball?
Oh, that's awesome. Matt, thank you so much for your time. This has been great. Best of luck. We'll be sure to catch up with you down the road.
Thanks for having me, guys.
That was our interview with Matt Fliss. Nathan, I can see why you like him as your trainer. Great guy, great personality, and knowledge out the wazoo, I have to say. I mean, the way he broke down every single one of those videos, you can tell the thought, the attention that goes into developing the different training programs, even if you want to kind of snuff or reject some of his ideas for mobility and stretching and things like that.
I'm just forever grateful to that man. Just being able to hear his breakdowns and share that with the audience is so special because I get to experience that weekly now. I get to experience that for the last couple years, and I've really gotten to know that person. And Matt is one of my best friends. We started off in a position where we didn't really know each other at all, and we were kind of thrown in and really had to grow and develop that partnership, that give and take. And he's just been so thoughtful and kind and just very giving with his time, his energy. Him and I go for bike rides all the time. In the last couple of weeks, we've gone for several rides, and just who he is as a person, the humility, the grace, and that hunger to help so many other athletes, as he's been a vital piece of McMaster when he went to schools, that school there, their strength and conditioning program. And now with UBC, he's helped lead so many programs to national titles, national championships. And I've been lucky enough to really work with him and grow at the start of my cycling career, and I just owe that man so much. Was there any big takeaways from that interview for you, Alex?
I mean, I 100% agree with everything you say. He's had an impressive resume already, and you can tell that rapport between the two of you. The one question I want to ask you before we get out of here, Nathan, what's it like spending time in the Pain Cave?
It is a beautiful place. As a cyclist, it's very much type 2 and type 3 kind of fun, where type 2 is it sucks in the moment but you like it afterwards. But there's also some days where it is type 3, and I've thrown Matt into those situations many a times on the bike where we do many different things, where on a ride I'll just yell watt bomb, which is like the cycling's term for power or sprinting, and I'll just start going like crazy, and he'll try to be chasing after me up hills or on the road. But the Pain Cave is a place I've gotten to know well, but so many athletes who we've had on this program before know what the Pain Cave means and know that it's a demanding place, but it's also a beautiful place.
Absolutely. It's just like the end of our show because we're up against a clock. It's a demanding place to be, but it's a beautiful place to be because that means we'll be back again next time. Catch you then.
Thanks for tuning in to Parasport Nation. Like and subscribe to the channel to follow us now.